Woman thinks her exhaustion is just jet lag. Then her doctor realizes it's much more serious. While traveling is usually one of the most exciting parts of life, Ella Dawson's backpacking trip to Colombia was unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. During her stay, she started feeling exhausted, and the reality of her dream vacation was quickly replaced with concerns for her health. When Ella finally saw a doctor, she learned that her symptoms were much more serious than she realized. Ella, a 23-year-old graduate student from Huddersfield, West Yorkshire, planned to visit Colombia for 7 weeks on a once-in-a-lifetime backpacking trip. But things soon went awry for the student traveler. When she landed, Ella was exhausted, but she thought she was just experiencing jet lag. She spent her first 3 days in Colombia sleeping in her room, trying to acclimate to the new country. I spoke to the staff at the hostel we were staying at, and they reassured me that because Bogota has a high altitude, a lot of people struggle to acclimate when they first arrive, Ella said. That, plus the jet lag, made perfect sense, so I didn't worry too much. Besides, these symptoms weren't exactly new for her. Prior to her arrival in Colombia, Ella reported feeling tired at home and caught several colds. She saw a local physician not long before she left. The doctor took her blood pressure and told her she should check back in a week if she still wasn't feeling well. In Colombia, her tiredness persisted through the week, and she developed strange bruises. When she tried to push through and explore Colombia, she was forced to rest after just a few minutes. This pushed Ella to visit a doctor, 5,000 miles away from her home. When she did see a doctor, they took blood tests and sent the results to her regular physician in the UK to get his opinion. Days of her vacation passed, and Ella grew restless. While they waited for the results, Ella waited at home and searched for flights back to England. 4 days later, her Colombian practitioner called her with urgent news, and she was rushed to the intensive care unit. Ella was soon transferred to a larger, more specialized hospital. This is where she received terrible news. The medical staff only spoke Spanish, so Ella only understood broken patches of the diagnosis they gave her. Through a translation app, Ella learned she had leukemia. The cancer was so aggressive, it was in 90% of her blood. By the time I got my diagnosis, I was so unwell that I was expecting a bombshell, Ella said. Now she was entering a fight for her life. Because she was so sick, it wasn't safe for Ella to fly home. Luckily, her parents flew out to Colombia to be by her side as she processed the gravity of her situation. Treatment started immediately, with 7 blood transfusions and 5 bags of plasma. This stabilized her, giving her enough strength to make it through the 11-hour flight home. I was put in first class so I could lie down, but I was so exhausted that I slept the whole way, Ella said. She dreaded what was coming next. Ella made it back to West Yorkshire and continued her treatments. Her UK doctors diagnosed her with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, a very rare form. Her body was overproducing blast cells, or immature white blood cells. Experts needed to try something serious. They immediately started her on an intense chemotherapy regimen. I was given a 6-month treatment plan, which helped me to get my head around things, she said. Unfortunately for Ella, the chemo decimated her immune system, and she spent her time isolated in the hospital. A few months in, the doctors changed Ella's treatment to 4 types of chemotherapy for 5 days. That was one of the worst times so far. My whole body was in excruciating pain. I'd get splitting headaches, blurred vision, and lost all my hair, Ella said. Just when the doctors thought the aggressive treatments would finally lead to remission, tests revealed that Ella relapsed. This continued bad news left her defeated. I didn't believe them at first, as I felt absolutely fine, she said. By spring of 2020, coronavirus pandemic created stalls. Doctors then decided to refer me for CART treatment. But as it involved harvesting my blood cells and sending them away to be reprogrammed to fight the cancer, the coronavirus created some delays in getting them back, she said. Ella was in limbo. The only thing she could do was try to be patient with this unexpected snag. While I waited, doctors struggled to keep the cancer at bay. It was developing really fast, she said. The summer would be make or break for her. Over the summer, Ella started CAR-T treatment at Manchester's Christie Hospital. This involved removing her blood cells and then reprogramming them to fight cancer. Ella is still waiting for her results to see how this innovative treatment worked. I also want anybody reading this who might be going through what I did to know that while it sometimes feels impossible to stay positive, by keeping moving and finding the bright side where you can get through, she said. Somehow, through the toughest days of her cancer journey, Ella found a passion. She started teaching others about the 6 most common signs of leukemia: fatigue, shortness of breath, fever and night sweats, bruising or bleeding, bone and joint pain, and repeated infections. Ella learned to trust her instincts and pay more attention to the signs her body gives her. Something that might seem harmless could potentially be a warning sign for a more severe health problem. Once you recognize the physical signs of a serious illness, you can catch them earlier. Victoria Price, for instance, was unaware that her health was compromised. Her entire Florida news team was working long hours day and night, with no intentions of slowing down. If she wanted to keep her position, she'd have to keep her composure. In fact, she prided herself on it. As a journalist, it's been full throttle since the pandemic began, Price said on her Instagram. We were covering the most important health story in a century, but my own health was the farthest thing from my mind. That is, until a viewer chimed in. After a long day of newscasting, Price logged into her email to discover a message from a concerned viewer. Her words for Price were so jarring that the news anchor was quite concerned. The woman writing the email noted that Price's neck looked abnormally swollen. While she wasn't a doctor, the viewer told the news anchor she might want to visit a doctor and get her throat checked out. Of course, Price was skeptical. At first, Price hoped the viewer was mistaken. She wasn't feeling ill after all. Sure, her throat was a bit sore, but her job was to speak all day long. A little hoarseness was expected. Still, she decided to give her doctor a call. Price explained to her doctor that she had no symptoms other than a swollen throat. Her doctor informed her that even though she was mostly asymptomatic, she should pay him a visit. Frightened by his foreboding words, Price set up an emergency appointment right away. Price showed up at the doctor's office, masked up and ready for anything. He took a look at her thyroid and, after a few moments, confirmed her fears. Price had developed thyroid cancer in the middle of her neck. The news got even worse. While cancer is typically a disease that develops within our bodies, there are certain types that can be seen from the outside. The most common of these visible cancers could be hiding right under your nose. Well, perhaps a little lower than that. The most common symptoms of thyroid cancer include a swollen neck, pain up to the ears, and trouble swallowing. However, these can also be signs of a standard sore throat. Bad news kept piling up. Thyroid cancer can spread like wildfire. Once past the thyroid, it can spread far enough to cause irreversible damage. Unfortunately, Price's cancer had already begun to spread into her lymph nodes, but had it gone too far? Thankfully, Price's doctor said she was lucky. Her cancer had just begun its attack on her lymph nodes, which means the viewer might have caught it just in time. However, there was still a chance of complications as Price was going to need throat surgery. Thankfully, Price was very positive about her outcome. She was expected to only need one surgical treatment with no chemotherapy or additional procedures. To help calm her nerves, she decided to post about her diagnosis on social media and was instantly bombarded with questions. Price received tons of love and personal stories from her followers, plus an array of inquiries regarding her diagnosis. One user pointed out that they couldn't see the lump at all, to which Price responded with an insightful point. "It's not super obvious unless you know what to look for," said Price, who then took a photo from a new angle. This helped her followers truly understand what the viewer saw and what to look for themselves. So how did Price's surgery go? On the day of her surgery, Price posted a photo of herself in recovery, enjoying a popsicle. Aside from a little stiffness, soreness, and weakness, I'm feeling pretty great, she said. As she healed, Price continued sharing about her experience on Instagram. She even claims that the surgery was the easiest part. Prior to my thyroidectomy, a lot of people told me the surgery is the easy part. I didn't understand that at first. Now I do. Price gave her followers a crash course about her months-long process of recovery, even sharing some not-safe-for-work photos. Her prognosis? It's not a death sentence, but it is a life sentence, says Price, who will forever be in recovery. I'll be on Levo and need to balance these levels for the rest of my life. I may be scarred, but I ain't scared. Thankful to still be alive, Price had some words of advice. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. That's the moral of the story. A little kindness went a long way for me. Don't forget that your health is your wealth. Her words have resonated all over the planet. People are finding ways to address their health, especially amidst the pandemic.